Hello and welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad Tehami. Pakistan Institute of Development Economics has come up with a policy note regarding as to what could be the consequences and the impacts on Pakistan's exports to the United States of America after the US President Donald Trump announced to impose 29% tariff on Pakistan's exports to the US, later on announcing a pause regarding those tariffs which he had announced to impose on around 185 countries to be exact, and out of those 185 countries, 60 those who apparently had a trade surplus. Now there are a number of things that had been happening after that particular announcement on the part of US President Donald Trump, and also that announcement of the pause of 90 days with a baseline tariff of 10% applicable to all the countries around the world. When we specifically talk about this policy note on part of the Pakistan Institute of Development Economics, it talks about that these tariffs, these unilateral tariffs on the part of the US towards Pakistan could actually lead to an impact of macroeconomic instability, leading to job losses and reduction in the forex earnings. Also talking about at what rate this particular tariff stands, which is 8.6% under the most favored nation tariff, and with the addition of this 29% of the tariff to this already existing 8.6%, it is going to go up to 37.6%, which according to this particular policy note is going to lead to a likely decline in exports of 20 to 25%. with an annual loss of $1.1 to $1.4 billion, especially hitting the most important of all these sectors, which is textile sectors. But at the same time, this particular policy notes talk about this particular crisis as an opportunity for Pakistan, and calls for a possible thoughtful and swift action in response from the part of the Pakistani authorities. Also talking about the diversification of both the export product of Pakistan and the foreign markets for Pakistani products. Also, there are a number of other recommendations which have been made in this particular policy note by Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. After that announcement of 29% tariff on Pakistan's export to the US, there have been a number of statements which have been coming from the high-ranking officials and authorities here in Pakistan. Now, in an interview with the British Broadcasting Corporation, Pakistan's Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb has said, let me quote, Pakistan has no intention of retaliating against the tariffs imposed by Trump administration. Pakistan is indeed concerned about these tariffs as they have created an atmosphere of uncertainty. We all need to think about how to move forward in this new world order, and I believe it is essential to engage in a dialogue on this particular matter, unquote. We have also known for a fact that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had earlier constituted a high-power committee and a working group to thoroughly examine the impact of these tariffs on Pakistan's economy and trade with the US. We also know for a fact that Pakistani authorities had decided to send a high-level delegation to the US in order to promote trade relations with the United States of America and also get into negotiations regarding these particular tariffs. We've also seen a statement coming from the Foreign Office spokesperson during his weekly press briefing, stressing the consistent nature of the global commerce and called for a swift and mutually beneficial resolution to the matter, saying, let me quote, we emphasize the importance of bilateral trade in ensuring more development in developing countries. It is a very important vehicle for common prosperity. Trade always benefits both the parties, and the US is our biggest export destination, unquote. All these important matters are for discussion in today's show. Already we've been able to conduct a number of shows regarding as to the trade war the United States of America and China are having, and at the end of the show we'll be talking about this particular escalating trade war between China and the US, also with China urging the US to take a big step to correct its mistakes, completely cancel the wrong practice of reciprocal tariffs and return to the right path of mutual respect. Chinese Commerce Ministry says regarding that. Let me quickly bring in our esteemed panel of guests who are joining us to discuss about this particular pressing issue. For that, we are honored to be joined in the studio of Mr. Abdul Jaleel, senior economist. Mr. Abdul Jaleel, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. And also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Mohammed Zeshan. He's heading the research group on trade, industry and productivity at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Dr. Zeshan, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Mr. Abdul Jaleel, if you allow me, let me start with that very policy note Dr. Zeshan's institute has come up with that talks about the possible consequences of these tariffs on Pakistan exports to the US. Dr. Zeshan, first could you briefly share with our viewers regarding the important findings in this particular policy note by PIDE, and you happen to be one of the author of those policy notes as well.
So as most of the people already know that the policy note says the Trump administration has imposed a reciprocal tariff. The reciprocal tariff is based on the formula that US trade deficit with Pakistan is quite high, and they want us to pay a tariff rate which is reciprocal to the US import tariff. So US tariff in terms of percentage is 58%, and they want Pakistan to pay at least 29% of the tariff rates. This is the half of the from the reciprocal tariff rate for Pakistan. So these implications are very high for this tariff rate, because annually Pakistan would face at least 1.1 to 1.4 billion US dollar arising from this tariff rate, which is almost 20 to 25% of the total export. As we know that US is the largest export partner of Pakistan, it's the largest market for Pakistan. So it's very important for us to take this note very seriously, that what happens if the US pause does not pause anymore, what happens if US lift the pause. So it's very right time for the Pakistan government, for the Pakistani administration, for the Mian Shahbaz Sharif Saab to send a delegation for the trade diplomacy to release the pause and come back to the MF. And
okay, that comes under the ambit of the recommendations that you're making. I've gone through that particular policy note, the number of recommendations. We'll definitely touch upon that particular aspect of this particular pressing issue. When this particular policy note of you, of course, are the author of, also the co-author of it. So I just want your understanding that what sort of an impact you already talked of. There could be a reduction by 20 to 25% of the exports.
Yeah.
So it also talks about that the impact could lead to job losses in the reduction in the forex.
Yeah, we estimated that the potential impact on the job losses would be around 500,000 people. They would be.
That's quite considerable number.
Yeah, it's a quite considerable number, because textiles is the largest export in Pakistan, which contributes the highest. It has 60% share in the total exports of Pakistan. So because its scale is very large, it's the largest export. That's why most of the people, they are associated with the textile industry. So if the tariff implies on Pakistan, the industry will suffer greatly. So and the job loss, and also US will also suffer from the textile tariff as well, because Pakistan export a lot of textile to US, which is produced primarily from the cotton, which we import from the US. And at the moment Pakistan doesn't charge US for any type of tariff on cotton. US cotton has duty-free access to the Pakistan market. Pakistan uses the US cotton and produces textile, high quality t-shirt and leather jackets, and export it back to the US. If this tariff is imposed, US will suffer greatly, because the prices of the Pakistani exports will rise 29% in the US market. US consumers will have to pay 29% higher prices to all the t-shirt and textile industries products. So it's a loss for the US consumer as well. So the US consumer will face a lot of welfare loss in the economy.
So if that is going to be applicable, do you think, as you have just mentioned, that Pakistan imports that cotton from the US, which enjoys a duty-free access to the Pakistani market? In return, we produce those textiles and they are exported to the US. And in this particular scenario, if that 29% tariff is implemented, it's going to have a counter effect on the US consumer as well.
Yes.
So what ideally is the recommendation when it comes to the US authorities making a realization about that?
So Pakistan has, a fair deal here to discuss with the US counterparts. Pakistan should negotiate with the US counterparts that we do not, charge tariff to the US cotton, which Pakistan imports from the US. So US should reduce the tariff rate for the textile at least, which is the largest export product to the US market. So this could be the starting point, this could be the first point. And given US is a larger economy, US should consider this as well. So this could be a first starting point, then we can go for other
recommendations. I'll come back to you for your other recommendations as well. There is also one very important point that this policy notes talks about the market competitiveness when it comes to the textile exports in particular as compared to the other regional countries as well. There is a tariff that has been imposed on those also, specifically when we talk about India, Bangladesh and Vietnam. So I'll be coming back to you regarding as to what could be the market competitiveness when it comes to the textile exports of Pakistan to the US is concerned. Mr. Abdul Jaleel, I beg your pardon for holding you for some time because it was very important to just take his view regarding as the policy note his institution has come up with the consequences that are going to be on the Pakistan's exports to the US. What's your understanding? What are going to be the consequences?
Thank you very much for having me on this subject. In fact, if you try to see, this tariff raise which has been done by the present government, in fact, more or less is meant to seek a new negotiated settlement in field of international trade system. And this is what the President Trump of President Trump was always trying to tell his nation, that the present international trade system is not in fact is not supporting United States economy. We are being fleeced. This is what he more or less tried to behave a country which has been subject to colonial control and whose resources were been robbed off, and this is what he used to say. So and the people, majority of the common man, they were convinced that unfortunate that the United States of America has become the endpoint for the consumer goods, and those consumer goods are being sold in our market at a very cheap rate. Our job has gone. We have been deindustrialized. This was another major objection which President Trump have raised, that all the jobs have gone out of the country overseas, mainly to China, to Southeast Asia, to India and to other countries. And then we have been deindustrialized. Industrial assets has also moved, the financial capital has also moved. And he said, now we will try to bring back this, the jobs as well as the industry in order to move the wheel of the economy. And the President, in a very layman, phraseology, he has said that I will try to make every American very rich. This is
okay. So,
but the question is,
Mr. Abdul Jaleel, before heading into further detail of learning about the dynamics of what could be the intentions behind this particular move on the part of US President, the kind of reasons that he has actually talked about, he wants to get the jobs back in the US, he wants to reindustrialize the United States of America, bring in millions and millions of dollars in revenue. But if this move was made on 2nd of April, just almost around a week's time didn't lapse, so he announced a 90-day pause. Why a pause? Does it lead us to understand that the administration was not prepared or they didn't calculate beforehand the impact of it, because we saw the turbulence going all across in the world markets? Then why announcing a 90-day pause if those were the reasons he was actually focused on?
90-day pause has been declared because of certain, those circumstantial realities which has been created as a result of these the new tariff system. It has created a crisis in the bond market. It has created a crisis in the Wall Street financial institution, foreign exchange, and and everybody knows that these market has met a big crash there. And for example, the auto industry have suffered a loss for more than 43 billion as well. The agriculture market, the prices have gone up, inflation has been pushed up, and its impact is being felt all over the world, especially in the European market and high-tech market as well, and in the Southeast Asian market and the Chinese market. But the Chinese has vowed that we will be it will not affect us. We will be able to come out of it very victoriously. The Chinese government is very much determined. They are determined in the sense that they say that we want you know, we want to rationalize these tariff rates with United States of America, but using, you know, the tariff as a weapon to kill or to injure the economy of other people will not be acceptable. And this is the attitude of the France. This is again the response of the Germany and the Western European country as well. And probably they will, I think, Canada too is also feels very much aggrieved in this respect. And the Canadian have simultaneously they have imposed a retaliatory tariff upon American goods. So what you see in, you will see a very, under these circumstances, I can see a sign of emergence of a new international trade system, which is coming up now. President Trump wanted to, he knew in the beginning that new trade system will again bring about a de-dollarization of international economy. They have taken, but he have taken those steps so hurriedly that they could not contain their consequences or their cascading effect. And now the market has lost confidence.
Cascading effect or those circumstantial happens that happened after that particular decision, if they were so intense and that they sent actually the shock waves all across. So what about the long term? I mean, could there be any other possibility other than these shock waves that were observed all across because of this particular?
The damage has been done. It would be very difficult to restore the confidence of the European market, the Asian market, or the Latino American in the United States run or manage international trade system. What I can see that the regional market will emerge and they will become most forceful. And I think this is an opportunity for Pakistan as well to think and pay attention towards the development of a regional market as well. Already the foundation has been laid in form of a CPEC. Then the Gulf region, as you know, the Saudi Arabia have already decided to sell its petrol to China in yuan. Yuan has become an international market. So I think
that's a very important observation. I want you to go a little bit in detail regarding as to this particular emergence of the regional market. But before heading to that very important aspect, I would love to understand your opinion regarding as to what sort of an impact this particular 29% tariff, if implemented, would have on Pakistan's export to the US. I'll ask you this question, but let me bring in Dr. Zeshan also. Dr. Zeshan, now I want your understanding regarding as to why this 90%, a 90-day pause that was imposed, that was later on announced by Donald Trump. Was he not confident about the move? Or do you also agree that the circumstances actually turned so grave that he had to announce it for 90 days?
I agree with Dr. Saab about the circumstances, because after imposing the tariff rates, the US stock market was in devastation. So there was trillions of dollars of losses in the US stock market. Damage was done. It can be come back. In 1 year, the trade deficit to US is almost $1.3 trillion in a year. So when Trump announced the tariffs in the US market, they had the 1 year tariff just in one night in the form of stock market, even larger than the US tariff. So this is the first point that I agree with. And the second is that why was the pause for the 90-day pause? It's a negotiation tactic. If you look at the recent statement of the United States trade representative, they say that whoever comes to us for negotiation first, he will be the lucky one or she will be the lucky one. Whoever comes to last, they will be crushed in negotiation. It's the first mover advantage, and it's also, I think they gave the 90-day pause for the negotiations because US really wants negotiations because the damage is done. But still US is the largest consumer market. Every producer takes his or her products to the US market. They need products. If they don't buy it, US would have to produce its own capacity, which is not possible.
What about the retaliatory tariffs?
By Pakistan?
By the other countries such as China, and the European Union also decided, although they have put it on hold after that announcement of 90-day pause.
Many countries, particularly China, it retaliates with even the higher tariff rates on the US. But the point is, it will not benefit any country. It's just turning into a kind of trade war, which if we look at the history, Whenever a country imposes higher trade tariffs, they just turn into a poor country. You get poorer every next year, because the theory of trade dictates us the comparative advantage of each state is destroyed. The comparative advantage is, if a country is good in producing something, that country should produce it in a large quantity to export it other countries where it is expensive to produce. This is the theory of comparative advantage. So if the theory of comparative advantage doesn't hold in the world, every country will produce the products that are expensive to produce in the country but are cheaper in the other countries. So there will be huge global welfare losses. So they are enormous. So I think every country will lose in this kind of retaliation. There should be a sensible and there should be a reasonable behavior, and WTO is there as a regulator of the tariff rates globally. I think all the countries should be.
Is there any mechanism under the WTO or any sort of solution to this particular unilateral tariff regime if one country comes up with?
Yeah, WTO, every country has a tariff bound rate. Tariff bound rate is a country commits a tariff rate and it cannot go higher than the tariff bound rate. US
the tariff boundary, is it the same for every country, or does
it's different for different countries?
This particular policy note of yours talks about that tariff ceiling of 3.4%. Is that Pakistan specific?
3.4% is for US. For Pakistan is 10.3%. It's the MFN status for both countries. The tariff bound rate for US is 10%. Pakistan's tariff bound rate is 60%. It's quite high. Pakistan has quite high tariff bound rate. So it's 60%. So it's different for different countries. But still, US had a tariff bound rate of 10% on agriculture and 2% to 3% on the non-agricultural products. It's quite low tariff bound rates. But 125% or the 29% is quite high. It's out of the tariff bound rate of the US. So WTO has a dispute settlement, mechanism as well. So if a country violates the WTO rules, the other countries can go to the WTO's dispute resolution mechanism, and they can, discuss the solution or the way forward for the situation.
Right, Mr. Abdul Jaleel, the impacts on Pakistan's trade with the US, if this 29% is implemented. You were also talking about this particular opportunity and the emergence of the regional market.
What I see, until and unless these P5, Russia, China, America, France, England, Japan, these countries, in Saudi Arabia and other, unless they do not agree to sit at a horizontal level and solve this problem, the problem will get worse. Inflation will, as a result of this high tariff, what would be the impact of it? It will bring a huge inflation in the country everywhere, followed by the higher interest rate, recession, along with low investment, especially the developing countries like ours. We are going to be on the receiving end of those negative impacts, right? And there are many countries in the world, especially the smaller economy, they might go totally bankrupt as well. So at an international level, at the international level, some measure will have to be taken to compensate and to help recover the economy of the smaller economy or those economies which are totally dependent upon the international trade system, existing international trade system. And in this respect, United States of America is facing a lot of vulnerability. For example, it is all very deeply involved in the debt trap. $23 trillion. Out of it, probably $3 trillion they owe to China. Chinese have purchased their financial instrument, right? And they can encash them at any time. But if United States of America try to pay the debt by printing more currency, it will certainly cause a huge inflation in United States of America, and scenario of 1930 recession will again appear. So the United States of America will have to, I think it is not an easy to come out of this crisis until and unless all these big countries are ready to make some sacrifice on their part for bringing protection to the this international system, international trade system. Well. So, and I would say that they should repose confidence in international World Trade Organization, which has become already ineffective because of the non-compliance, especially by United States of America, with respect to its commitment.
So at this point in time, do you think, is there any sort of a role this particular organization could play, or any major country knocking its door to get that particular dispute which has just risen?
These major economies have to decide.
Okay.
If they are dissatisfied with the terms and the condition of WTO, they should sit down and they should try to evolve the new terms and the condition. But certainly not at the expense of the developing economy or the smaller economies. We have already paid enough price for it, you know. And I don't think so that this will work, because the Chinese, the Chinese system, the world have failed to appreciate the Chinese sacrifices which they have made. The Chinese have made available the goods of the high tech at such a cheap, price to everybody in the world, even in the poorest country of the world, even in the cottages, African cottages, or in the cottages of the poor country, in the villages. The Chinese goods are available, and they are assisting them to develop their economy. This is, although the West says that they are dumping the goods in other countries as well. But the question is that they are not dumping the good. I do not interpret this act in this way. They are in fact trying to beef up a international trade system through linkages which could bring a win-win situation for every country.
Right. So you already talked of emerging, the regional market emerging. So in that particular context, when we talk about specifically the case of Pakistan, what are the possibilities?
Pakistan, Pakistan, as far as our resources are concerned, we are very rich in that, for example. Right, agriculture resources, agriculture constitute 22% of our area. We produce, the fruit of very high quality. We also produce the crops as well, but we need to create a surplus out of it for export. And I tell you, the international food market is still deficient. Right. And most of the country are depending on imported food, including China. And the Chinese have made offer to the government of Pakistan that if you try to export your surplus food to Pakistan, they will welcome it. Unfortunately, we could not produce surplus. Number one, geographically we are located in this position, which brings about a very sharp and a smart connectivity between various big economies as well, with Central Asia, with China, with Russia, with India, with Iran, with the Gulf region as well. So we are placed. I think the CPEX carry a great promise of prosperity to people of Pakistan and to people of China. And President Xi have rightly said it is a lifeline, for the countries, those who are involved, especially in this road and belt network. So I think the Chinese, in this respect, should they are already committed to it. They are making investment. So we should try to explore these new ideas as well, explore new avenues as well. Along with that, we should take some drastic measures for cementing our, the economic. Cementing our economic step which we are already taken. For example, our high-tech center. High-tech center, we have developed a high-tech center, I will say with some good step, but much more needs to be done. Then the software industry carries a huge prospect in the global market. And Pakistan has developed good institutions for production of software engineers, and as well as the software infrastructure can be developed, for winning a place in international market as well. This is another area. Agriculture produce is another area in which we need to develop connectivity with the international market as well. So along with, you have to not only make investment on industrial adventure, but you have to develop a very smart, market system, having connectivity with the world market and with the regional market.
There are a number of other points that come back to you to take your understanding. For now, we are honored to be joined by another participant, Mr. Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, former advisor at the Ministry of Finance. Dr. Najeeb, thank you very much for taking time out for views on news tonight. Really appreciate that. I was looking forward to have a conversation with you regarding this very pressing issue the world has been facing since 2nd of April after US President Donald Trump announced those tariffs all across with a baseline 10% tariff on all the countries with different percentage of tariffs. Pakistan also came in that particular with a 29% tariff imposed on Pakistan. Later on, we saw that announcement of the 90-day pause, but China being the exception because there was a further increase of tariffs on the part of US President as far as China is concerned. How are you looking at this? What sort of an impact it would have? We have seen the turbulence all across the world. What's your understanding, sir?
So, Jawad, let's try and understand why did the U.S. authorities need to go through this tariff disruption? What are the main points that they are thinking? Number one, they're thinking that they have a trade deficit with many countries, including Pakistan. And so we'll come to the Pakistan scenario later. So they want to decrease this trade deficit. Number two, they're trying to make some money so that their fiscal deficit is also helped by the amount they make. The tariffs they have in vogue right now, they hope to make between $300 to $600 billion a year. So that's point number two. And yet there is another point. They feel that the offshoring of jobs, which means Vietnam is making their jeans, Pakistan's making their cloth, the leather products are coming from Pakistan, China is making their phones, India is making their phones. So think through this. Phones, apparel, shoes, they've been too much offshoring, and thus the number of jobs being created in the U.S. needs to be increased, which have gone down because of this offshoring. So these were the three key areas which I think pushed the U.S. authorities to take such an action. Now, it's easier to understand the Pakistan scenario in these three areas. So Pakistan last year had a trade surplus with the U.S. of $3 billion. That means that $5 billion of export Pakistan did, leather, garments, surgical goods, rugs, carpets, and $2 billion of import, which was cotton, machinery, steel products, and a couple of other things. So they are uncomfortable with the $3 billion in deficit that they have, probably similar this year or a little higher this year, and they want to take certain actions. So Pakistan was slapped 29% tariff, which for the 75 countries now has gone back to 10%. And for China still stays between 125 to 145, depending on how you calculate it, but has been reduced on certain areas, which are the phones, etc., some electronic items, because they need to import those into the country. Now, I think globally, 75 countries are in negotiation with the U.S. So, if you think about it in a more positive manner, the end result should be maybe, a slightly better one, with the overall tariffs going down and they moving into free trade agreements with EU or UK or, these countries. But the other side, the US also feels that 10% basic tariff is a must to have. So we have to see what kind of negotiation we end up with. On Pakistan, I think my suggestion would have been the following. We have constituted a committee or two committees rather, because Pakistan governments tend to work with committees, and they're trying to make a paper so that one of our delegation goes abroad. But I'm sure Pakistan is one of those 75 countries which are negotiating with the US as to how to move forward. There are certain areas which offer a better solution, and then there are challenges. I mean, the areas which offer a better solution are the following. Pakistan needs to import 6 million bales of cotton, so we might as well do it from the US. Pakistan imports palm oil, we can replace it with soybean oil, so we can import it from US. Aircrafts, machinery, steel products, these are all the things we import from the US. So we can think about, a tariff regime from them. Secondly, Pakistan can offer to continue to export at a better margin if we are able to find a better margin. So that onus goes on to our business community if they can do better on the margin. The challenges, of course, are that the other countries will also be kind of negotiating a lower tariff. And so right now, the Bangladesh, the competing country, Vietnam have fallen into a higher tariff if that tariff was to be invoked. But I'm sure they are also negotiating. So the challenge is that we are able to do a better negotiation. But we also need to, take this as an opportunity in the sense that some industry, if it shifts from any country where there is still a higher tariff after this negotiation, Pakistan can, export. A U.S. delegation is in the country. So the areas we must talk to them about, mines and minerals, surely, but otherwise the other areas of the industrial development that Pakistan needs, whether that's making cars in Pakistan or apparels in Pakistan. You have to really think this through. A jean that is made in, I was reading a research, a jean that is made in Vietnam costs the US $20. A jean that is made in the US is costing them $70. Then the wherewithal, the technology, the kind of labor, the kind of ecosystems to produce phones would probably be, difficult to set up in the earlier. So they will take some time, even if that was to happen. And then also going forward, the thinking is to move to robotic kind of factories. So, these are the things the countries have to consider. The real opportunity for our country is the following. We have to become domestically competitive in the industrial arena, whether that's firms' productivity, labor productivity, and agriculture productivity. That's the only way forward. On the tariff side, I've been always advocating this. We have 3 or 4 kinds of, duties or levies. One, we have normal custom duties. That's all right. Then we added ACDs, which are, additional custom duties. This was done in 2014. Prior to that, we added RDs. These are regular duties. These regulatory duties, ACDs, were not permanent item, but they've become a permanent item. Now is the time to think through this. What did we try to do? So what we try, and then, there is a fourth thing also. We also charge some income tax on imports, which I've actually not understood as an economist, that how can we be charging income tax on something that has not made any money, or there is no business that has taken place. So you have to really, really think about the extra levies. In the US case, the other opportunity that we have is to think about our non-tariff barriers. Now, non-tariff barriers are the following. Non-tariff barriers are, the smuggling, the customs valuation frameworks, the regulatory frameworks. That is what is causing this 29% tariff on Pakistan, which was imposed. So the opportunity is to improve upon all this. In conclusion, the challenges are there, which can be overcome in terms of good negotiation, reducing these tariffs. When we put a cascading tariff, Jawad, what that means is lower on the raw material, higher on the product. Our industry becomes inward looking. What does that mean? We've not been able to sell one car in the world because we've kept car duties so high. Our car manufacturers, or rather assemblers, are not even competitive to sell a car in, neighboring Bangladesh or Afghanistan or Iran or Sri Lanka, forget East Asia. So, you have to think differently. This import substitution kind of setup has not worked in South America, but the export-led growth has worked in East Asia. So Pakistan is in a very, very peculiar position where we want to make this transformation. This U.S. trade framework, the new framework that comes through, then WTO has to be revived. So the global economy has to do all this work, but the local domestic economy, the business community, and our Commerce Ministry in the lead has to work out all these tariffs. We have a National Tariff Commission. They should have been doing this work long time ago. They should have been negotiating how to, lower these kind of tariffs in a manner of 5 years. Now, the IMF is also asking us in the MEFC. This time is especially opportune. One, because of the trade disruption that has happened. 2, because we are in a fund program, we have macro stability, you've seen all kinds of macro numbers come good, remittances, current accounts is in surplus, inflation is down, markup is down, your cost of electricity has decreased, petrol prices have gone down. Look at the number of tailwinds you have in the country right now. So now you have to transform this macro stability into a growth framework. And the growth framework is an export-led growth, but it has to start with reducing tariffs, making our businesses in terms of economies of scale bigger. The businesses have to get out of this, mindset of running it themselves, get professional management, take them onto the stock exchange instead of keeping them as private limited companies, get more equity, become bigger in size. Now, that should be Pakistan's next 3 years. Jawad, if we can do all this in the next 3 years, get some mines and minerals investment moving in the country, I think Pakistan should be looking slightly a better place in terms of growth strategy than where we are today.
Quite a comprehensive take, Dr. Khaqan. Najeeb, you didn't leave any room for me for any further questions, and unfortunately we are short of time. Look forward to catch up you soon in another show. Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, former advisor at the Ministry of Finance, thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. In the studio, we were joined by Mr. Abdul Jaleel, senior economist. Mr. Abdul Jaleel, thank you very much for your time. Also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we were joined by Dr. Mohammed Zeshan, heading up the research group on trade, industry and productivity at Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Dr. Zeshan, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.